Adventures. I am coming to you from a new platform today. So it doesn't have the bells and whistles. Well, it does, but I just haven't figured them out. It doesn't change the content though, and this will still appear in our YouTube channel as well for you to watch later. So welcome to what is Monday Night Live, or welcome to our session today. And for the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about our fitness for the hiking trail, and fitness as in what we need to do in terms of our training to get us ready for either a solid day hike or a multi-day hike, or what you need to look for if you are starting out new in your hiking journey. And so we've looked at how to speed up without actually doing anything about your fitness, so how to increase your pace. We've looked at training for hills, and we've also looked at hiking in the rain and how that changes everything. And we've also looked at our strength training. So today we're going to look at our cardio fitness. So let me just check in here because comments are new. Yeah. Okay. So if you do have a comment, please just drop it in there as well. Yay. Hi, Brod. At least I know that this platform is working. So we're going to talk about cardio strength today, or cardio fitness, and why some days just feel so much harder on the trail, even though you might have done that trail for quite a while. So it's really relevant. There's six things that I want to talk to you about. And, it's cooler weather relatively here where I am in Queensland. And, it's sitting on 26, 27 down to about 18 at night. So it's much cooler than it was. It's still not cool by some standards, but much cooler than it was. And, I do the same trail week in, week out. But today the trail seemed harder. It seemed harder cardio wise. And why is that? And there's six reasons. The first reason is, there's six things to consider. Some days just feel harder, even though my legs felt super strong today. We can also avoid the hard breath. So what it takes to just tip us into that next level of cardio. The comfort trap. So why we just keep staying in our same training zone all the time. What trail fitness versus cardio fitness actually is, and they're two completely different things. And also how strength or our step training and our trail fit training really go together to work out, to close this gap between our hiking fitness of where we are now and where we want to be. And that cardio and strength, I often get asked what's more important, and should I preference one over the other? And they're not in competition with each other, but there is a sequence that we need to follow as well. So welcome. I can see I'm kind of finding my way around this new little studio that I have. So welcome if you're watching live. Hello, Lynn, as well as Brod being here. So today I'm talking about the gap between how our training feels and what actually happens when we get on the trail. So there can be a big difference. There can be some expectations that aren't met, or there can be some expectations that are, superseded or not superseded, that are, what's the word? We've just succeeded in, we've surpassed all our expectations of what the trail was going to be. So let's think about this. Let's have a chat, and please feel free to share your comments. And hello, Marie, and hello, Alison. So why are some days harder, even though we've done that trail before? We've been doing some more strength training. We've been doing a whole lot of things. Well, our cardiovascular system, that's our breathing system, there's a whole lot of variables that becomes sensitive to, that sometimes have nothing to do with our fitness level. And it could be sleep, which is a big one I know for a lot of women that I talk to. It can be heat, it can be humidity, it can be hydration. And when we're on our hike training, or when we're on a multi-day, depending how all of those things come together, can determine just how well our cardio system works. And if you go on a multi-day hike, and like most women I know, that first night is a really difficult night for sleeping, and we're in a strange bed, we're kind of getting used to what this is going to feel like. There might be a level of anxiety around, where do I fit? What if I don't make it? All that kind of stuff. So we don't sleep particularly well. We may be sharing a room, so we don't maybe drink as much water as we should, because heaven forbid if we have to get up in the night to go to the toilet. So we may start our day on the trail a little bit dehydrated as well. So if you think about, or you're going to a climate where it's normally warmer than what you train on, and I see that with all our southern state friends here in Australia who generally don't like hiking in the heat and end up in Europe, in even the shoulder months of Europe now, and find it's much harder to hike because they chose not to do some of the training in the summer months, which I get as well. So if I think about how my training went today and how as I said, I found it much harder, is that I didn't sleep particularly well. I went to bed at normal time. My husband was tossing and turning and threw his arms out of the bed and knocked over a lamp, which took me an hour to figure out what he'd actually knocked over. So then it was like 12:30, and I'm kind of lying there, and I got myself to sleep, but it was still a little bit warm. I probably hadn't drunk as much water. The weather's cooled down a little bit comparatively, so I probably hadn't drunk as much as well. So if I think about how I went on the trail today, those two factors, because it was much cooler, those two factors were playing into me. So if you're out there training and you think, oh, I do this trail all the time, yet today it's just harder for me. If the hills feel harder, my legs feel okay, but the hills just feel harder, or my breath is a lot heavier, or I find I'm not catching my breath, or I'm a lot slower than I was. It could be the heat. It could be just sleep. It could be hydration or dehydration. It could be even one glass of wine. And I know, it's a nice treat to have, but that can contribute to dehydration as well, depending on how much water you might have drunk that goes with that glass of wine as well. So, they can all affect how our cardio feels on the trail. So even though the legs feel strong, so how efficiently our heart can pump blood around depends on how well hydrated we are also. So what we see on the trail is when someone's chatting away, and then all of a sudden we come to a hill and they go very, very quiet, and the conversation stops, not because the person's being unsociable. It's just like, this is demanding more out of me than I can actually give you. So stop asking me questions because I can't answer. So one of the great ways, a really practical tip that we can measure our cardiovascular fitness is, can we keep talking while we're on the trail? Can we, especially when we're going uphill? Now, it doesn't have to be like I'm talking now, that kind of pace, but you are able to, return a conversation. It could just be yes or no's, but you're able to have some level of conversation. If you are at the point where now no conversation going up a hill is something you do, and you can get to that point of yes, no, or ask questions of others, then you know that your cardiovascular fitness has improved as well. So really important to think about that, because we often, compare ourselves to others, and I'll talk about that in a moment as well. But when we are out on a multi-day hike, and the big question I get asked all the time, especially for people who haven't been on a multi-day hike before but have fitness, it's like, well, how do I know how I'm going to be, by day 1 or day 3? How do I train for it as well? I have good cardio, or I go to the gym, or, all of these questions. So when we're on a multi-day hike, we generally, if there's a meltdown, it'll be night 2, where, the anticipation of being there and the tiredness and the fatigue all just kick in, and that emotional release, which is not really a meltdown, but, we are hard on ourselves and think of it as that. But by the next day, once that initial pressure valve is gone, we walk into day 3 feeling much fitter than we did on day 1, except if you have not prepared enough to be there on day 1. So the great thing about hiking and multi-day hiking is the trail trains you while you're on it, which is, the gym won't do that. The gym won't train you, while you're there, but the trail will give you that feedback. It will give you that skill set. It will give you the conditions to learn and adapt and grow as you go, or get fitter. But if you arrive prepared, you'll walk into day 3 much more prepared, and you'll actually be able to walk into day 3. If you arrive underprepared, then the struggle to get to day 3 is really real, and that is cardio, and that is strength as well. So point 1 was, why do some days feel hard even though your legs feel strong? And it's all about our breath and our cardio. And hello, Leonie, Kerry, Marie. Nice to have you here. Point 2 is why women avoid the hard breath. And I see this all the time. And what it costs if we avoid the hard breath. And what is the hard breath? It's like, oh my God, I can't breathe. This is so hard. This is like my heart's going to just pop right out of my chest right now. That is the hard breath. That is the point we want to get to. And why do women avoid that? Not all women. And certainly most of you watching would know the exact space that I'm talking about. And even today, it's like everyone's being mean today. I wasn't being mean today. I was just keeping everyone moving on our training. So we didn't think about all the other things going on in the world. Let's just keep moving. Then we don't have time to think about anything else that's going on. But most women dislike getting out of breath. We'll listen to our watch, we'll feel our heart like beating here. We've got this heavy pack on our back, heavy relative thing, and we feel like we're losing control. So what we do, especially if we're new to hiking or new to moving into the next phase of hiking, is we feel like something's going wrong rather than the feedback of something going right. So think about that where you are with your hard breath, and think about that where you are with what you do when you show up to any sort of cardiovascular training, anything that requires you to get out of breath. So what I see happen is when we get to this point, some women will excel and go, just give it to me, baby. Just push me a little bit harder and I'll take it on. And then I'll see other women who go, no, this is my comfort zone. My watch is telling me this. My heart is telling me this. I'm not going to go any further, but they're actually slowing down. I'm not going to go any harder or faster. They're actually slowing down because it's in here. It's not physically inside them what's happening. So they'll back off at the very first sign of effort. Now, you might think, well, that's not me. I hike and train all the time. But it's whatever level you're at. If you want to get to the next level, and you may not want to, and I'll talk about that training at a consistent pace in a moment. But if you want to get to the next level, you have to go the hard breath. You have to do something that gets you out of that comfort zone to get to that next level of comfort zone. So some people will back off, men and women, at the first sign of more effort, more not even perceived effort, not even real effort. They will go drop to the back. They'll slow it right down. They'll go quiet because it feels safe. They don't want to hold anyone back. They don't want to be last, or they fear the fear of being a burden, and that fear of being a burden overrides their own personal desire to be a fitter hiker. So have a think about that. If that is you, and I see it all the time, and it's really hard when you're in a group because the group is all progressing, is that you kind of sometimes default to a position, but the fear of being a burden on the group, and depending on the group, some are super welcoming and it's irrelevant, and some are less so. But that fear of being a burden is stronger than the desire to help ourselves become a fitter hiker in a lot of instances. So when we train at a consistently comfortable pace, our body just produces the same consistent, comfortable pace of hiking. It doesn't change. To change, we need to just go the hard breath. We need to go a little bit out of our comfort zone. So to the people who always walk with that slower friend, or drops her pace the moment the heart rate climbs, or mistakes a hard breath for, oh my gosh, I'm in a danger zone, this is not good for me, is really just putting up a wall for the stimulus that will make the breakthrough to making the trail easier. So if we think about this in a let's reframe it. Where's the opportunity? Where's Yvonne going with this? If we think about getting out of breath on a hill as feedback to us, a signal, and we often talk about the signals, we talk about, the signals with our pace, and we talk about signals for what happens when we're hiking in the rain and all that kind of stuff. The breath getting hard, and we have to get out of breath to go up a hill. For some, it seems a lot easier, but we all have to get out of breath going up a hill. The breath, like getting out of breath, feeling that, oh, I'm at the top, I've got to take a breath, which is perfectly normal, is you're asking the body to do something that it hasn't done before, which always feels hard, but it's a brief moment of discomfort to get us to the next level of comfort. So have a think about that. Have a think about when you go up hills. Are you always just slow and steady and plodding along to get up the hill, especially if it's the same hill for training? Or are you giving yourself a little bit of challenge to get out of breath? And that's what builds that capacity of closing the gap between what level of fitness you are now and what level of fitness you want to go to. So what I see, how does this go on the trail? What does this mean? Well, those who are on the trail, and I saw it this morning, and I see it on a lot of multi-day hikes, and I was adding up. I think I've done, I reckon I've done 100 multi-day hikes in the last 10 years. And what I see on the trail is that the women who train their cardio and the women who train their strength, and I'll talk about their little relationship in a moment, aren't necessarily more talented. They're not necessarily fitter. They've just built this relationship with effort. They know that if they put in this effort, they'll get this reward. And I've seen people go from being absolute beginners to champions on the trail through consistently pushing themselves a little bit harder. Today is a training day. I'm going to do the training. Today's a hike day. I'm going to just drop and chill and be able to take everything in because I've put in all that effort with my training. And the women who manage really well through a day and through a multi-day, day after day after day, they know, and those of us who were in New Zealand not long ago on Tongariro, you know how hard it was to get to the summit of Tongariro, to the top of the volcano there. But we knew that effort, all those stairs, it was only temporary. Our breath would come down quite quickly and we'd be able to gather ourselves and go again. But that reward and effort in a really safe environment was, it's a temporary reward, but it's quite addictive as well. We know that if we put in the effort, we get the reward, and that our system has, or our body, not our system, has just leveled up to the next step. So think about this in your situation. How do you go with your breath? What is your relationship with breath? And if you've got a conversation or if you've got a tip, I'd love to hear it. Are you someone that will challenge your breath every time you go out in training? Or are you someone that is like, I'm just comfortable, I'm not pushing it, I don't want to go to the next level? And it's perfectly okay. So this is to the next point, the comfort trap. Why training with the same group keeps you at the same pace. So I'm not talking about a dedicated training session like our Mondays are. I'm not talking about, going to the gym with a PT and doing a dedicated training session, because they know how to mix it up. And it might be the same people, but the trainer, the coach there deliberately and intentionally knows how to mix it up. But if you are hiking with this, and this is from some real questions that have come into us, if you are hiking with the same people all of the time, and that is the same pace, the same group, and doing the same trails, then your cardiovascular system has no reason to adjust. It has no reason to step up. It's already comfortable. And comfortable is maintenance, which is fantastic. It's consistency, but it's not development. It's not progressing. And it's perfectly okay to be in that same comfort zone and train with those same level of people. And if you travel with them and adventure with them and you're all doing the same pace, then that's fantastic. But if you're someone who wants to step it up to the next level, then you need to find the next level to train with. And I have spoken over the years of playing tennis with a tennis player who's better than you or not as good as you, and you will always play to the higher level. So, if I was playing against Roger Federer, wouldn't that be lovely? It wouldn't even be a game, but I would be, pushing my tennis racket so hard and racing all over the court, as opposed to playing with a 4-year-old who's never picked up a tennis racket before. So you always will train up rather than train at the same level. So if that's what you want. So, the thing, we always talk about consistency over time equals results, which it does. But if you are training and doing the same thing all of the time and never leveling it up, then that's a little bit of an invisible trap that won't close the gap. And I have seen one of our members is coming on her first multi-day hike with me this year. I won't say anything more than that. And I have watched her from her very first training to where she is now. And I have watched her push hard. I have watched her feel uncomfortable because getting out of breath or going that distance or that time on the legs has really been in a place that she hasn't been before. But she is now seeing the fruits of that labor, and she commented the other day that all this hard work is really starting to pay off. I remember when I first started, my breath, I just really felt like I was out of my comfort zone. It wasn't going to work. And she finished with feedback for her body, but showed up again the next time and just pushed it a little bit harder. Didn't know anyone, didn't, just kept in her lane to push as hard as she could. It's not military, pushed as hard as she could, and got herself to the next level and kept getting to that next level. And our starting base is all different for all of us. But when you can see that progress and see what that effort and reward looks like, it really is motivating. So Leonie says, I love to challenge my breath on the trails. I love the feeling of getting my second wind. You're so gorgeous, Leonie. As the lungs open up further, that gives me a chance to relax into the hike. Yep. And that first kilometer is always a little bit of a nightmare. It's like, what's going on here? But once you get through that, you really can start to go, yeah, I made it to the top. Let's cruise a little bit here, and then I'm on to the next thing. And that just is that adaptation over time will make us fitter and stronger and a better cardiovascular. So, if you get to a multi-day hike and you're surprised by your fitness on the trail in a not so good way, have a think about whether you've just been training at your comfortable pace. If you've been training at a pace that is training and challenging you and lifting you up, then there shouldn't be a whole lot of surprises on the trail unless the information you were given about the trail was completely wrong. And Leonie, I know you trained really well for our adventure in New Zealand this year, and there were no surprises physically for you because you just did it all with ease. But those surprises on the trail when your fitness doesn't match what the trail is, it's not because you didn't train. It's just because nothing in the training replicated the strength or the cardio demand that was needed for the trail, and that's a gap. So I'll talk how a 12-week training program feeds into all of this, and I'm trying not to make it too complicated and too heavy on the words that trainers and physios and all those use. So what does trail specific cardio fitness or cardiovascular fitness actually look like? So if we walk, and most of us will walk around our suburb or our farm or wherever we are, if we walk on flat footpaths most of the time, it will maintain our general function. We can put one foot in front of the other. We can, walk up that street that might be a little bit steep. We can walk down again. We can cross the road, lift our feet up on the footpath. But it doesn't build the cardiovascular capacity that hiking needs. So when we're on the trail, we have a sustained to moderate effort. We have very gradient. We might have load on our back. We might have variable conditions. It might be raining. We probably don't go out in our own suburb when it's raining. So our cardiovascular system will respond to the demand that we put on it. So if we're just doing our footpath walking and not putting any demand, we're moving and we're maintaining, but we're not challenging it, which is fine. But when we go on a multi-day hike and we know the trail is different to our everyday, we need to have challenged our body to match that every day. So if you train fit, here's a couple of takeaways. If you train fit or train flat, you get flat fit. Say that. If you train flat, you get flat fit. Yeah. So if you train with gradient, if you train with load, and if you train with sustained effort, you develop trail fitness. Train flat, get flat fit. That's hard to say. So the gap between the footpath fitness and the trail fitness is real, and it's specifically cardiovascular. So, so let's see what Brod has. I've been challenging myself for a multi-day hike in April. A big one too. Feeling like I wasn't progressing. This week I've scaled 2 hills. Awesome. I love the word scaled without stopping, which is something I've never done before. This has given me some confidence that I'll be able to do it. Yep. And I think the thing is that we, keeping, and I know a few of you on here, um, keeping a diary of what you do, because we often forget. It's a bit like our strength, and I'll talk about that in a moment. When we lift weight, if we don't record the weight we did, we kind of tend to default to something a little bit less. So if you were to look back at what you did a couple of months ago, Brod, you would probably realize just how far you've come. So well done to you. Hello, Gail. And Gwen says, yes, that first kilometer, it's a thing. Now I know it will pass and the rhythm will kick in. Absolutely. So remember, train flat, get flat, fit. So when we are in our midlife, so, over a certain age, we really need to keep maintaining and developing our aerobic capacity. And unless we are regularly stimulating it, it will decline, and it will decline a little bit faster, and it just takes longer to maintain. So that's why we do a 12-week training program, because it gives, for all our multi-days, it gives the body that time to start adapting not only to strength, but to the cardiovascular system as well, even if you're starting from scratch. So if you are newer to hiking and you want to go on an intro multi-day, then the 12-week program starts you and progresses you from there. If you are like Brod and you've been hiking for a while and you're ready to step it up, then getting into that rhythm of 12 weeks to really start to elevate that cardio and the strength is going to just marry beautifully into success on the trail. So how do we know if our cardiovascular is improving? And you can do this on the stairs. You can do this on our step fit classes, which I'll talk about in a moment, and you can do this on hills, is everyone will get out of breath going up a hill or upstairs. Absolutely. No matter how fit you are, your measure of trail specific cardiovascular fitness is how quickly your breath recovers. So we can all get up to the top of a hill, and some will have their breath come back to normal. And if they're watching their heart rate, the heart rate will come back down really, really quickly. That is a measure of cardiovascular fitness. And it's relative to you, to me, to everyone. Some people will linger with that breath being a lot higher for a lot longer. So their cardiovascular fitness is not as advanced. They still have it, but it needs to be challenged more often for that heart rate to come back down really, really quickly. Everyone's going to get out of breath going out uphill. So don't think that doesn't work. And as Leonie said, it's like that sucking in the big air at the top, but it does quickly come back down. And it's training yourself to get really, really comfortable with that. So we call it the top of the hill test. So there's a couple of little things in here to take away. But so how does our gym work? How does our cardio work help us on the trail? So we do the things inside Women's Fitness Adventures called step fit training and trail fit training. So most women cannot push themselves into an uncomfortable cardiovascular zone. It's like, oh, I'm topping out here. My breath is getting high. I'm just going to stop here when they're training alone with friends. But when you get a trainer, or when you get someone that you will just give you that more structured way to elevate your heart rate in a safe way, this environment where effort is expected and it's normalized and it's led, right? So you don't have to be, you're not comparing yourself to anyone. You're just given a space where you can be challenged safely to elevate your heart rate to the next level. So if you do, say, our step fit class or stairs or a HIIT class at the right intensity, you'll get into that hard breath zone that I was talking about. You'll get into that zone of pushing your cardio up to the next level. And everyone, wherever you're doing this, is equally challenged. No one, we're all coming from different places, but everyone is giving it a go. It's really easy to say, I'm just stopping out here. This is, I'm comfortable. I pushed it hard and I did the 15 minutes or I did the 30 minutes. But did you really do it where it challenged you? Because going through the motions, nice. Remember, train flat and you are, I can't remember my words now, train flat and you are, I'm going to have to write that down, and you are flat fit. So train 15 minutes, you're 15 minutes fit, but train with intention for 15 minutes and you are much more intentionally fit for that. So when everyone is expected to elevate their heart rate together in this, controlled environment with a trainer or whatever that trainer looks like, the effort for everyone becomes normalized. We're all going, yeah, let's elevate this together. It's short, it's sharp, it's sweet. I know it's safe. I'm going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but it's going to push me through to the next level. And this isn't just for hiking. This is for life. This just trains, spills over into life. And when I see the women who have done, last week I spoke about strength training, when I see the cardio, I just see it happen on the trail. I see the difference on the trail each and every time. And I also see the difference on the trail where we might get to a multi-day hike, and those who have trained their cardio and those who have trained their strength are like, I've done the training. I've done what I'm supposed to do. I'm here. Give it to me, and I will do my very best. And that's all we can ask. But I also see on the trail, I wish I had done more of the training. And I see that a lot. And I hear that afterwards. Oh, if I'd done more of the training, I would have managed better on the trail. So I see that. So this is like the early warning signals. So when we do the trail fit or a strength training session, that builds the muscular engine. So the cardio feeds the engine, and the strength training is the engine. So they do have this beautiful little relationship. Strength and cardio go together. And when we're hiking, both of those are being called upon to perform on the trail. So they do need to go together. So when I see women who have done both, they breathe better, they fatigue later, they recover faster at the rest stops, and they arrive at the end of the day, relaxed and ready to, not relaxed, but tired, but ready to go again the next day. They're on the trail, they're looking at the view, they're noticing things, they're not thinking about how my leg's going and how's my cardio, or no, what have we got a hill coming up. The trail is the reward for the training. It's not a test, it's a reward. The test is in the training. So do I prioritize cardio or do I prioritize strength? And someone asked me that today. And I would, if you're consistently training and not doing either, then I would prioritize strength. But they don't compete, they're a sequence. So, when we strength train, that's the variable that protects our joints, it holds our posture, it builds our confidence, and it delays fatigue. Remember the difference between tiredness and fatigue. And cardiovascular training just completes that picture. So our sequence is, let's build strength first. So if you're sitting there going, I'm not doing either, I'm doing my comfortable training flat, where do I start? Start with strength. Build the strength first, because your body will require less cardiovascular effort the stronger you are. And the stronger you are, minimizes your risk of falls. It helps you stay stronger and more stable on the trail. You can push up, you can step over, you go for longer as well. And the less effort you have to put in means the less that your heart rate has to do the work. So, it will give you more confidence and skill to move through the harder sections as well. So the heart won't be racing and it won't be consuming as much energy. And then you would move to building your aerobic base on top of that. So if you think about where to start, and certainly for our members, the trail fit training is where to start, and then you overlay a step fit onto that. You can still do your flat stuff, but really if you, and this may not be for you this session. If you think, well, I want to get into hiking, I just don't want to push it really hard, that's okay. Just choose trails that are, comfortable and local and, not technical of any nature and beautiful. You've met all your objectives. But if you're someone that wants to get to those places that are, big wow moments, that are bucket list things, that are multi-days, stringing days and days in a row, then you do need the strength training and you do need the cardiovascular training to go together. So the gap between your training and the trail is not a fitness failure. It's just this opportunity to learn and have feedback and go, where do I need to go next with my training? So every time we're out on the trail, me today, within the first 15 minutes, it's like, this is so much harder today. What is that telling me? That's telling me that maybe I didn't sleep well. Maybe I weren't hydrated enough. Maybe I maybe it was hotter than I thought. Maybe my bag was heavier. What was actually going on? I have a slight headache now, and I would say I was probably dehydrated. So, using that as feedback. So as I pull that feedback in, my cardio, what am I doing for my cardio? What am I doing for my strength? What am I doing for my hydration? What am I doing in all the different seasons for my hiking? That gap of how I'm going to perform on the trail starts to close. And that's what you want. So if you're booked on a multi-day hike wherever you're going in the world, and you know what that hike is going to ask of you, and you know what your training is doing, let's try and narrow that gap. And Rod, it sounds like you're in the right place. Leonie's been in the right place. I know most of you who are on here. I know some of your plans for what you're doing, and just figuring out, am I in the right place? And so the 12-week training plan, whether you're with us, which we give you, or whether you're on your own, is the perfect time frame to be able to pull all those elements in together, provided you get the right information at the start. So when we start to narrow that gap, and that feedback loop I was talking about, something shifts inside of us and we go, yeah. And this lady I was telling you about earlier, I've seen her beautiful journey of how she's just giving herself this constant feedback loop of pushing harder. Not hard, I'm not talking that we're killing ourselves or flogging ourselves here. We're just pushing harder. We're asking a little bit more of our body each and every time. And she's getting this effort reward loop that's making her more and more capable for the trail that she's chosen every single time. So when you get to that multi-day hike, it's this amazing experience because you're not managing yourself every moment of every day. You're just living, breathing, and doing the whole experience. You find your rhythm, you find the views, you find the company, you find the support, and you find that expression of transformation that's happened all through your training. You're just living it out in real time. So we're training to close that gap between what life on the trail on a multi-day hike looks like every day and what we do in our training. So it's not fitness, we're just closing this gap. So all of these things we do in our hiking journey and our hiking training are all fantastic things for life. They will make us stronger and healthier, give us more mobility and freedom and flexibility as we move through life. And when we have that, the longer we have that for, the more choices we have. And when we have all these choices, we have freedom. And that is just such a wonderful thing. So remember, fitness will get you to the trailhead. You can hike flat. You can do all of that. It'll get you to the trailhead. Strength will get you through the day. You may be tired, but it will get you through the day. The cardio keeps you moving while the strength holds you up. And together, those things all close the gap. So a couple of questions have come in. Hello, Sandra. Hello, Elizabeth. Brod says warming up beforehand is a definite benefit. Yep, I've added warming up into my run, as some of you know, and I have a 10-minute walking warm up at the beginning and a 10-minute walking cool down at the very end. It's annoying, but I know that I'm getting my body into that space. My heart rate, my blood is being pushed to my extremities, and I'm warming up those muscles before I'm asking it to step up to the next level. So great point there, Brod. Alison says, this year is my first back-to-back multi-day hikes. So yes, you've bundled two together. Any suggestions as to how to manage getting and staying trail fit? Yeah, so the key is a couple of things in here that I've spoken about is to, when we've got a big one, and that's still quite, 6-7 months away, is we want to make sure we're not peaking too soon with all of our training. So, following a plan, being consistent, showing up consistently, but challenging yourself each and every time. So when we build a training plan, we will challenge you to increase either endurance, so time on legs, hills, incline, or weight on your back. But we won't ask you to do all three at once. But when we get, we might increase our distance. So we're asking you to level up each time. We might then increase our hills over that distance. So we're leveling up again. So cardio being layered on top. And we might then ask you to put load. So all of those things are progressively increasing you. That's why we do a training plan, so that when you get to the trailhead, the injury is not there. So with that specific back-to-back one, Alison, we'll be doing a combined plan so that you will know how to do it. But I would suggest now, because they're both moderate and above hikes, is that you are out on the trails, especially now where you live, it's cooled down a bit, that you're out on the trails as frequently as you can, but you're also doing strength training. Strength training will hold you in such good stead across every type of terrain. And the terrain, once we have that strength training, once you start to feel really strong in your legs, the time on your legs on trails will feel so much easier. The surfaces on your feet will feel so much easier. The recovery will feel so much easier as well. You will feel tired but not fatigued. You will feel more self-confident, or confidence in self on the trail. Once we start getting that, it's finding more cardiovascular challenges. And I know down your beachways, there's quite a few cliffs that have some great little training sections in there, and some hills where you live as well, some great hills to train on. But it's finding people that will challenge you to go faster than you and bring you along with them for that cardio. So yeah, great question. And I hope that's answered some of your question as well. So as you can see, cardio and strength do go together, but if you're wondering where to start first, start with strength. And remember, if I look it up, because it's hard to remember, where is it? If we train flat, we get flat fit. I'll share that with our members because it's just a diamond. So remember, if you train hills, you get hill fit. Yeah. If you train rocky trails, you get rocky trail fit. If you train with a pack, you'll get pack fit. So there you go. That's it from me. It was a long one today. So thank you for joining me. Hopefully the new streaming thing worked. If you have any questions or any comments on this system, actually, please let me know. And this will be over in YouTube as well. So thank you for joining me, and I'll catch you next week. Bye.